Hi, everyone, and welcome to episode 3 of Founder Sessions. Joining me today is Peter Hopwood. Peter, welcome to the podcast. How are you doing?
I'm doing really well. Probably not as good as you are. You're a Newcastle fan. At the time of this recording, we're both down at the bottom of the Premiership. I'm a Watford fan. I just so happen to be wearing a Watford polo today. So whenever you listen, whoever's listening to this, whenever they're listening to this whole probably story of a relegation battle will probably be over. But right now, it doesn't look great for my team, but it looks kind of a little bit brighter for your team. How are you feeling about it?
It's interesting for sure. Obviously, Newcastle's been in the news quite a lot this year with takeovers and everything. But I'm an optimistic Newcastle fan. It could go very badly. It could do very well. I'm
Yeah,
I'm
but the
I'm
great
I'm
thing
used to
is
it.
the great thing is whoever's listening to this, whenever they're listening, so they could be listening a few years' time. When you're listening to this could just be like old history because you could be like Champions League winners right now. So we'll see what fate brings your team and mine.
Well, fingers crossed we have brighter futures for both our football teams, that's for sure.
Hopefully, hopefully.
So, Peter, thank you for coming on the podcast. Do you want to share to the people who are watching and listening a bit more about what you do? And we'll go from there.
Yeah, sure. Essentially, so to bring it right down, I help people, I help teams, I help leaders to really share their stories in the right way. So help them to find the stories, nurture those stories in a way that's going to bring impact and connection as well. So as a TEDx speaker coach, helping TEDx speakers globally to prepare their speech to get it right, to make sure that 15, 16, 17 minutes of fame, they use that wisely and get as much connection as possible with their story. Or it could be helping people that are standing on a stage, a smaller stage, let's say, or just speaking in front of their teams as leaders, as managers, as CEOs, for example, and again, getting the right connection and the right chemistry between what they're saying and what people are listening to, and also essentially working with accelerators, incubators, startups, founders to really create pitches that people want to listen to and pitches that actually create connection as well. So a kind of mixture of those three. Also as a presenter at different tech conferences globally, hosting stages, managing stages, again, creating that chemistry and making sure that these big events run smoothly in terms of the person standing on the stage. So a kind of mixture of those three things, but it's all about communication. It's all about getting the right story and sharing that in the right way.
Brilliant. And we'll touch on the sort of the what makes a good speech and all that later on. But how did you get into this role, Peter?
So I left. So listen. As you know, I'm from Watford, and I left Britain. So I live in Croatia. We haven't said that yet. So I live in southern Croatia. I lived here for more than 20 years. Before that, lived in another 6 countries. So essentially, I worked. I was an art student at college, university, UK, and then after that, I left. I wanted to find a little bit more. Well, I was intrigued with traveling. Also, my confidence wasn't that great. And I found that, and I'm sure you agree with me as well, and people that are listening, when we travel, we feel good, right? And when we travel, it actually boosts up our confidence. So for me, it was a real confidence booster to just travel, and I was curious. I wanted to see things, and then literally that whole line of the travel bug just caught me. I lived in Paris. I lived in Marseille. I lived in on the islands of Mallorca, Madeira, Malta, Budapest, working for different companies, working for Disney, working for companies where I had to really. I was doing a lot of selling, a lot of presenting, a lot of sharing ideas to persuade people, to convince people to buy into those ideas. And through that journey, I realized that I kind of had a talent for it. I enjoyed it. Sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't work, but I'm fascinated by the small things we can do to change perception, right? To get closer to the outcomes we want, right? So that's things in terms of how we say what we say, the tone of our voice. Sorry, the tone of our voice. Also, how we move, how we use our gestures, how we feel about ourselves, how we feel about the people we're speaking to, how we feel about the content. All those things play a role in how people feel about what you're saying. And so, fascinated by this, I took this further and further, came to Croatia. I opened my own company about 12, 13 years ago. And ever since, really even still learning a lot myself. So every single person I work with, every client I'm working with, every company, they're all different. And I'm still learning so many things to learn from everyone. And there's enough people on this planet really to have work. So I'm really happy that I'm doing something that I really enjoy, and still learning from it, because there are so many small things, psychological ideas, behaviors, skill sets nowadays. For example, over the last 18 months, 2 years or so, this skill set of getting it right here in this Zoom box, in these virtual exchanges, really helping people to really understand that a lot of the things in the real world are not the same as they are in this box here. So really, helping people to create that chemistry, that connection, and that trust, which is so difficult for many people on Zoom calls. So that is a kind of whistle stop tour of how I got into what I'm doing today.
That's a brilliant journey, and you share a passion for traveling, and I love traveling as well. And I think everyone that loves traveling has been very, very upset that they can't travel over these past couple of years and things. So traveling, it really had major benefits for you in your career. What's the sort of, when did the penny drop for you? When did it say, you know what, this is what I'm going to dedicate my life to. I'm going to help people get better with their speaking, their pitching.
Yeah,
When
no,
did that happen?
yeah, that was while I was here in Croatia. So came to Croatia again, working for different companies, working for different tour operators as well, in terms of the hospitality and travel industry. And then, I started to help people communicate better. And then I realized, well, hey, why don't it would be a good idea to really help people that need to build up the confidence, because that is a massive thing. Naturally, the anxiety that we have, for many, not everyone, but first of all, that building that confidence, that self-confidence, that those stories in our heads, the things that are keeping us back from doing the things, or from shining how we really need to shine.
Would you say,
That's for many people. That's the thing. Something in their head, something that they keep telling themselves. Oh, I'm not good enough to do this, or what will people think of me, or the judgment level of others upon me is so high that I'd rather not do it. Right. So it's all about, to start off with, helping people to realize that, listen, you've got nothing to lose. This is something that you can do. This is something that is a story in your head that's stopping you from doing something, stopping you from sharing your voice. So a lot of it is actually psychological. A lot of it is actually me listening to my clients to start off with, to really understand, maybe, or get closer to the things that are telling them they can't do the things that they should be doing.
I'm glad you brought that up, Peter. Would you say that confidence and anxiety, is that one of the biggest barriers for people getting their story across?
I think that's one of the first things. So your demeanor, how you deliver and how you come across, is important. When we believe people, or when we buy into people's ideas, or when we're attracted, or somebody that's appealing, is often, not all the time, is often somebody that shows confidence, or shows self-control, or shows that they are in control of what they're talking about, right? So that's the first thing. But without that, it's even more difficult for somebody to listen to you. That doesn't mean that if you're confident and you're self-aware, and you are aware of your actions, aware of what you're saying, and coming across as somebody with a lot of self-control, that does not mean at all that you can connect well. All right. But that's the first thing. Once you have an element of that, then it's about what you say and how you say it, and the stories that you're sharing, the connection, the content that you share. So what I'm saying is, you can have somebody that's really confident, but just shares a lot of BS, right? Which we all know. We all know somebody that does that, right? So it's about building up that self-confidence and making sure that whatever you say, first of all, you come across in what people see and what people hear and what people feel about you, because they're making up their minds about you as soon as they see you or hear you. Making sure that that's up to the right level. Like here on this podcast here, people have joined us. They've started to listen to you. This is at this stage, I think you've just begun your podcast journey, right?
Yeah.
So people are still kind of getting used to maybe the first episode. They're hearing the second episode. They're making up their minds whether perhaps potentially they want to listen to more episodes, and they do that through what they see. If they're looking at the YouTube channel, they're doing that by what they hear, and they're doing that by the type of guest and the value and the content that's coming through. So me and you could be really confident. We could have really good awareness, and we could feel really good about ourselves. But at the end of the day, if we're not sharing value, if we're not sharing something that's going to make people stay with us and walk away feeling like, yeah, actually, I got something from that. Actually, there's something in there that's going to help me. I like that. That's something that is going to help me in my pitching. It's going to help me in my self-confidence. Something of value.
No, that's really good. And yeah, very early stages of this founder sessions, and we're trying to build it up. We're trying to get some really good guests. Value is so key in these. This is why I do the little clips. Obviously, the podcast goes video and audio, but the clips, those are where the gold are.
Yeah, they're really cool. Actually, that's one of the things that attracted me to the podcast, and how we're talking now and how we kind of connected. Saw the first episode with Steve, really cool, and yeah. So yeah, it's the value element, and you need to share that, or you need to give an indication of what that is right at the beginning, because nobody owes you a thing to stick with you. Nobody owes us right now to listen to this podcast. They don't owe us anything to stay with us. They might have started listening and then they can leave. They might have already left. It's just me and you now. Come. So we have to keep adding value and keep making sure that what we share is something that people will want to listen to.
Very true, very true. And Peter, tell me a story about the first time you ever stepped on stage to deliver a speech. How was that feeling, and how has it changed from then till now?
Yeah, well, listen, when you say that, it just reminds me of when I was actually even at art college. So this was way back, and I had to do a presentation on on Marc Chagall, in fact, a Russian painter, and I was bricking it. I was really, but I knew that the more I knew, and the more I practiced, and the more that I kind of knew more about him and his life, and what I wanted to share. So I had all my notes, almost every single word for word. I practiced it many times, and you know what? Actually, it came out okay. I actually felt, and it was almost like for someone who was quite again, not that confident and not really self-aware and not feeling great as a 18, 19, 20-year-old. I did this, and this was kind of like maybe the first little seed that told me, actually, you can do this when you need to share messages, when you need to, if you practiced enough, if you put everything together, you can come out and share something that's okay. And so from then on, I knew that every time I had to do this, I can handle it. Actually, every time I did it, you build up more confidence, right? Our confidence is, again, belief. Confidence is all about belief. Self-confidence is just belief, and belief often comes from evidence, right? So if we've got evidence around us, that tells us in our brains, yeah, this is true. This can happen. So the more I was sharing messages in front of crowds or small crowds or classmates or whoever it was, that was kind of like a trigger in my mind, which is evidence to tell me, yeah, I can do this and I am okay and I can do more of this. So yeah, I think this making sure that you've got evidence in front of you, and if you haven't got any evidence, find evidence, create evidence, right? Like, I don't know, like if, for example, you're somebody who's thinking about, okay, this year's the year to kind of get fit or to sort of change your lifestyle in terms of health, and you're going to start doing some running and you want to lose a bit of weight, for example. If you haven't got any evidence around you that you can do this, you're probably not going to get far. But if you start, so the first time you do it, you run for 10 minutes, you're knackered when you get back, right? You get back, you're okay, you've done it. Even that bang in your mind is evidence that you can do it. And then you keep going and you keep going. And then it almost becomes a habit, right? And then you carry on. And so that I would say is really, in the work that I do, the more I do, the more experiences I have with different clients, the more challenges I face in terms of the work I do, maybe on stages, on different tech conferences globally. All that is kind of, it adds to my belief system that I can do this, that I'm going to be okay with it, that I can face challenges, right? So yeah, making sure you're going out and finding evidence and using that to tell you, yeah, I can do this.
No, it's brilliant. And you've probably spoke to a room of hundreds, if not more. Do you still get the butterflies, or it's just, I've done this once, I can do it again? Is it that sort of self-belief that gets you
Yeah, no,
through?
the self-belief is a big thing, absolutely. So whether it's 100 or so in Riyadh not so long ago in November, I don't know, it was something like 6,000, 7,000, 8,000. It's the same system. It's the same ideas in my head, right? So knowing that I've done it before, I sort of played the role in my head. I can see myself, quite visual, and I can see myself on the stage, what it's going to look like. So before we begin, I've already sort of gone onto the stage, and I can see from the audience what they're looking at. So I've got kind of a mental visual image of this video of what it's going to look like and what I'm going to sound like and where I'm going to stand. And again, I've done it many times. So when you do anything many times, you tell yourself, it brings you more confidence. Doesn't necessarily mean that you're good at what you do because you do it many times. Like Zoom, like virtual exchanges, we've all been doing this for a long time now, 2 years, something like that. Many of us think we're good at it. Many of us think we're great at it because we do it all the time. That's not the case. Not always the case, right? So, but again, keep learning, keep looking at I keep looking back at the videos, at the YouTube clips, let's say, of the performances, of my training, of workshops where it's available. And again, that always gives me something to say, something I say to myself in terms of, oh, why did I do that? Maybe I could do it better, or maybe I shouldn't do that next time, or perhaps maybe I should move this way, or what would create a better connection if I did something slightly different. So yeah, I mean, I do get nervous, absolutely. But again, knowing that you've done something before is such a big confidence booster, and it levels you out and it helps you become more balanced when you've done it before, or even if you've tried it before, right?
Yeah, good points there about the
And I get sorry
visualization.
to butt in, but I think as well, this is the second episode, right? So by the time people listen to this, it'll probably be the fourth or fifth, maybe even more. And I'm sure, and I'd suggest you do the same, Carl. Have a look back at the episodes. I mean, you'll be doing that anyway, because when you edit, naturally you'll be listening to every word and every phrase and everything, the whole thing. But keep listening to yourself, keep looking at your performances, keep listening to these conversations, and you'll improve a lot as well over a short period of time.
No, it's so true. And what you can't see is I've got a wall here. It's got post-it notes on. It's got little
Oh,
notes from
really?
each part.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So it's like look at the camera more, or keep
Right.
keep the mic slightly away from me because the first episode had
Okay.
picked up a bit of feedback. So little things like
Okay.
that I've got here. So yeah,
Okay.
constantly improving and is so important,
Yeah.
and especially in the realm of speaking to a crowd or even pitching to a team or investors or whatever.
Yeah.
The one thing I like that you said there is visualization. Thinking about the thing before it's happened. I've heard that said a lot with sports stars, fighters mainly. They've gone through every scenario
Yeah.
in their head. Is that
Yeah.
a big thing, that visualization?
I think it's about what you expect, and this is not just speaking. This is pretty much everything, isn't it? What you expect and what you think about. So anything you think about a lot in your mind, it gets bigger, right? So that's both sides of the coin. So if you're looking at, let's say, when we worry about something, right, or there's an issue and we're thinking about it a lot, the more we think about that issue, the more we think about that worry, the worry becomes bigger and bigger and bigger, right? Doesn't it? So whether it's something small in our lives, or whether it's something really big in terms of stuff, relationships or divorce or whatever it is, we keep thinking, right? But that's true of the other side of the coin. When we're thinking about something we want to achieve, something we want to get closer to, the more we're thinking about that, the more we kind of put our own energy into that, looking at scenarios which may or may not happen. Actually, most of them don't happen. So most of the things we think about, they don't happen, do they? So the energy we put into something and what we expect, we will get closer to it. It doesn't mean we're going to get there. Sometimes we do, but again, I'm a massive believer in this energy that we put out. If we put out that energy, we're going to hopefully get closer to it. We're going to feel, and what we feel, that's going to come through as well, which is a big part of what I do to help people deliver the right messages. How they feel about the content, how they feel about themselves, which is a really big thing that I think a lot of us maybe don't focus on too much. But how we feel about ourselves, again, plays its part in the messages we share, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
For you, what's the biggest thing you love? Let's say someone comes to you, they're not the most confident person in the world. Well, how do you help them? And what's the biggest, like, you look back at someone that you've helped and you say, I'm proud of that. What's the sort of feelings
It's
for
the
you there?
change for me. It's really the change from when they began, often maybe with confidence, maybe not, but pretty much nearly always not much of the story, for example, or the content. It's not. It needs to be more crisp. It needs to be tighter. We need to really find a point which is really going to get people to listen and connect. And so, sort of nurturing that, taking that forward, and through that journey, ups and downs, and when it's the time of delivery, whenever that is, maybe a TEDx speech, maybe a pitch, maybe just a webinar or a panel discussion where they're the moderator, or maybe they may be a panel, a member on that panel, right? So at that moment, the moment they share it, you can see the work that I've done, or I see the work that I've done. Yeah. So when TEDx speakers, when they're TEDx speeches posted online, and they get the hits and the clicks. Every time somebody clicks there and they look at that speech, they see the person speaking, which is fantastic. But the great thing is, and many people don't know, and that's fine. They don't need to know. But I know that they're seeing my work as well, and that's a really good feeling. And again, people don't need to know.
Yeah.
It's not about making sure people know that I'm part of that TEDx talk. Not at all. It's what's important is that I know, and the person that I work with, they know.
Yeah, it must be a great feeling just seeing someone go out on stage and just absolutely nail it. Um, so you've worked with a lot of startups as well. Um, I'm guessing mainly around pitching their ideas and things and getting better about that. So if a startup founder comes to you, what's sort of the first thing you want to know about that founder?
Yeah, good, really good question. And the first thing really is I really need to understand what their idea is all about. I really need to know that. Now there are other coaches and other people working different ways where they kind of whatever they have, they just make it better. For me, it's kind of the opposite. I need them to explain to me what their I don't want them to. I tell them, please don't pitch me right now. Just tell me, what's it about. I'll ask you questions. You just give me those answers. And so through that first conversation, that tells me so much. It tells me how they feel about what they're sharing. It tells me how much knowledge and credibility they have in terms of the people that are the person that's going to take this forward. It tells me how much, is it going to scale? It tells me how much that they really know about the industry and the problems that are surrounding the industry. And again, the credibility that they have. I then, in my mind, I become often skeptical, and I ask those questions. Well, hang on a minute. What about this? Or have you thought about that? Or what makes you believe that it's going to go in this direction? Most founders, well, pretty much all founders, their idea of where it's going to go is not always where it's going to go. Most of the time, it isn't. So it's really about at the beginning, looking and hearing what they have, and really for me to feel comfortable saying to myself, yeah, actually, that's quite a good idea. Let's see how we can make this. Let's see how we can, first of all, make this idea better and then start sharing the messages. Maybe they already have that. Maybe that is already something good. And then I can just help them share their messages about it. But often it's about looking at the idea and maybe tweaking a few things and then working out a way to share those messages, or simply just a different message. They may have one message and one key sort of way of sharing their idea, or the messages that they want to share. This is what they have. They may not be the right messages to the people they're sharing to. They may not be the right messages. And I really enjoy, taking the complexity of things and really trying to make things simple so that people can really understand quicker. Because I might come up with an idea or a message that's quicker, simpler, and better for the audience, for the people that are listening to understand, and even more so for people that are potentially going to invest or help them forward with funding in some way. What's important for them, so making it clearer for them. So it's a listening process. It's me kind of like picking holes, really feeling comfortable with what they're sharing, and really kind of understanding where they are in terms of their idea, in terms of what they want, in terms of their idea, in terms of their messages, and in terms of how they're going to create this connection.
Yeah, it's so important, isn't it? And how early would you say the founder comes to you? Is it just an idea they haven't pitched before, or they're well into their
No, so
process?
working with, sometimes, but often I'm already working with teams that are they've already started scaling, they're already in business, or it may be like even down the line, even further, where they're looking for certain different rounds of funding. Yeah, but occasionally working with accelerators that are, really early stage, really helping them really form these ideas in a simple, structured way that's going to get their messages out and connection in the right way.
Yeah, I think we can relate on this next point. I myself has worked with the pre-accelerator. I co-led a few. Um, One thing I see is the content. The pitch deck is beautiful, lovely to look at, but then the delivery really lets it down. Do you see that quite often?
Yeah. Oh, many times. We need to feel so when we listen to someone, again, nobody owes us anything to listen to them. We don't, just because somebody's standing in front of us, we as a listener, we owe that person nothing. So as the person speaking, pitching, TEDx talk, meeting, whoever we are when we speak in front of a crowd, it's up to us to gain their attention, gain their respect, gain their trust, right? So we have to do certain things with our behavior, with our voice, how we move. That's going to help them feel like, actually, yeah, this person seems credible. I'll listen on. This person seems like this kind of curious about that idea. I'll listen on. So yeah, really, really important. And and again, the more we spoke about it earlier on, the more we do it, the more we pitch. Every time we pitch, it's almost like a learning curve. So we'll learn something from that, and we have to keep going, and you have to keep moving with some kind of guidance, right? Whatever that may be. It may be a pitch coach like me. It may be a book. It may be a mentor that you know that you trust and is going to help you along. It may be a combination of all those things. But yeah, the more you do, you build up confidence together with guidance. That's going to get you quicker to where you want to be.
Yeah, it's so true. And Peter, when let's say you watch people pitch, you might not have met this person, but can you tell when a founder or anybody has had that kind of training?
Quite
Is the
often, yeah.
Yeah,
You can see sometimes people show in their delivery, the way they move and the things they say, you can see that it's maybe doesn't feel that natural, but it's there, and so it leads me to believe that somebody has suggested they do this, right? Whereas others, some people are just naturally quite conversational, or they have already that confidence, and so that leads me to believe they've had maybe less, right? But yeah, you can genuinely quite tell. Again, things people say often can tell me whether they've practiced enough. Because when you've really got those words, when you've really done it, lots and lots of times, you can really, those are the kind of phrases that they've said many times before, right? So yeah, you can often see it and feel it.
yeah,
But so that doesn't necessarily mean that those are the best pitches. Some pitches are the ones that are not necessarily rehearsed so much or practiced, or somebody's come in and help them kind of construct everything. What's important is that we see some kind of structure. We see that this person is believable. We feel this person is enthusiastic and passionate about what they have to share. Again, another big thing as well, which I think a lot of founders maybe don't necessarily, focus on. It's really the belief about the sharing the problem, and knowing that you, as the pitcher, you really understand that problem. So you, in that industry, you've got enough credibility to understand what that problem is all about, how that problem arose, right? And getting us as the listeners, investors, or whoever's listening to that certain pitch, getting us to understand the problem as well. So it's almost like really focusing on that problem, because the more we understand about a problem, the more we understand those challenges, psychologically, we're more ready to hear a solution.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
such an important part, which often I don't see too much. Often it's about, quick problem, and we do this. This is what we do, and this is how we do it. So to change that, focus more on that problem, build up that credibility that you are the person that is the right person to take this forward, or your team, convincing us that you know about the issues in the industry. Because if not, I could be pitching that idea. You could be pitching that idea. Think to yourself, any founder listening to this, think to yourself, if somebody else could stand, who's confident and well spoken and looks good and could stand on a stage or in front of investors sharing exactly the same thing with just as much connection, if that's true, then you haven't got a leg to stand on, really. You have to really put in why you are the person, why you have the credibility to take this forward. Why why did you come up with this idea? Often it could be about that. How did you come up with the idea? Because you experienced the challenge yourself. You've thought about the challenges, or you're faced with those challenges, or people around you were faced with those challenges, so you know what they're about, right? I remember this chap not so long ago, in fact, and his idea, a young man, he was about 19, 20, early stage startup, and he was talking about his idea, which is simply a digital eye test. So, when you go into opticians and I don't wear glasses, but those that do, well, even those who don't wear glasses will know what this is. The eye test machine, where you sit behind it, you look into the kind of goggles, and then at the other side on the wall you see the numbers. Okay, so to get a pair of glasses, it takes time. In a lot of countries, it takes time. You have to make an appointment. You have to get there. It takes time for 1, 2, 3, maybe appointments until you get the glasses, and then maybe they're wrong, and then blah 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 blah. Right? So he's digitalizing this whole process. Great idea. So he came off stage. He'd just done his pitch, and I said to him, "Listen, I mean, good pitch, everything's cool, but you're quite young, 19, 20 years old. Can you just give me, what tells me that you know anything about eye testing, about opticians?" Because I heard nothing about it, and so his credibility in terms of the industry, very low indeed. Because if he has got experience, I have no idea about it. Then he simply said, "My parents." My parents own an optician. I said, "Really?" He said, "Yeah." He said, "I've been working with my parents' opticians for the last couple of years, every weekend. And one of the big challenges they've seen for many years, and I saw for the last couple of years working there, is the whole process, the long-winded, demanding process of actually getting an eye test from the moment you make the appointment right until you get the glasses that you pop on your nose, on your face." So I said, "Listen, you need to say that. You need to share something about that idea. You need to share something that tells people you are credible, that you understand these challenges far more than anyone else, because I have no idea about it. And I'm not saying most investors, but people in that room, probably the likelihood of people knowing a lot about eye testing and opticians is very low. So you need to share that in your pitch. You need to say something very subtly at the beginning, somewhere at the beginning, that tells people that you know what you're talking about. Like, over the last couple of years working with my parents who own opticians in the city, there are many challenges, there are many issues. The biggest issue was this, and then he explains about it, and then it's like straight away, bang, I know that he's in a far better position to figure this out, to find a solution than most people, right? Because there are many founders that are, they've seen an idea, or they're copying an idea, or it came to them, and they've kind of put everything together and sharing that idea. But the thing is, again, if someone's going to invest into you or your idea or your team or fund you, it's you that is really important in this mix. It's you. They need to know that you're dedicated to this. And if you face this challenge, the challenge, and you're frustrated by the challenge, and you want to put it right, this is something that's going to tell anyone, yeah, we can trust this guy. We know that this guy's not going to give up, that he really understands, or he can pivot. Often it's about, and that often happens. Something goes wrong, or it's not going right, or it's things aren't going in the right direction as much as you'd like to. You might have to change something, small change, a small pivot in your idea, and then it becomes a new idea, a different idea. But if I know that you understand all of this and you're dedicated to finding solutions within this industry, I'm going to believe you. So that was one example of where credibility really needs to be shown to help others really buy into your idea.
And it really gives it that human element, doesn't it? It gives it that emotional connection. I see a lot of founders in that they've got brilliant ideas, but they always lead with the technical side. Whereas the the pitches that really get me and a lot of people is, you know, that story, that emotional connection. It's like, this is a problem that I've personally dealt with. Those are the real like pitches that really
Yeah,
get
yeah,
me.
and there's certain things you can do, and again, phrases at the beginning to really get your audience and listeners to try to understand the same thing, even though they may not be in that industry, but something that is relatable and relevant to them, to most people. So getting people to imagine what it feels like. For example, I don't know, if let's say, I'm just thinking right now, top of my head, uh, maybe something to do with the travel industry in terms of delays. So you can start off by getting, again, common ground and getting people to really feel that frustration. So you can say something like, most of us here, again, I'm saying most of us. So that doesn't say everybody, and it doesn't say you, but it says most of us. Most of us have probably dealt with a delay at some point. So you can imagine the feeling of what it feels like waiting at an airport for a few hours, the frustration, losing money, not knowing whether you're going to get back for work the next day. You can imagine it, it doesn't feel good. So just by saying that, you can imagine what it feels like. I don't know whether you've been in that position or not. Maybe you have, maybe not. But you can put yourself and feel how it feels and feel that frustration. So once you start feeling that frustration, then it's so much easier for me afterwards when I give my solution for you to go, yeah, well, actually, yeah, that would solve it, because kind of mentally I've been there emotionally, right, with the problem.
Yeah.
So yeah, bringing this connection, relevance, and making people feel something, feel what it's like, even though they may not have felt it, but they can imagine what it feels like. Yeah. So yeah, emotion
Yeah.
plays a big part.
Oh,
Absolutely.
huge part. And I see a lot of people saying, "Oh, no one cares about your idea until you make them care," and you make them care by really putting it plainly and on an emotional connection. It's like, this is a problem. You may or may not have known this, but you can relate to that problem. I think it's really powerful. And sort of, let's say a very early stage startup founder, they're about to pitch for their first time. If, let's just say, you had 5 minutes with them before they stepped out on there to deliver that pitch, what sort of quick tips would you give them just to really get some powerful points across to the audience?
Okay, so quick tips, early stage founders, first thing, and probably as an early stage founder, level of anxiety may be slightly higher, maybe because of the experience, not that experienced in terms of pitching. First thing I would say is your control, right? Your control and how you move. This comes across. So how you feel is really important. How you feel about all those things I mentioned earlier on, how you feel about yourself, about content, about who you're pitching to, how you feel really comes through. So you need to feel good. You need to see this as an opportunity. You need to see this as an opportunity to share something that people don't know about yet, right? You need to show that you're in control. You need to show that you're calm. So coming out, standing still, the very first couple of minutes, or even less than that, it's really standing still. You're right, looking at the people you're talking to and saying to yourself, I need to make a connection here. I need them to feel, I need them to listen to me more, right? So coming out, body still, so not moving around, looking at people in front of you, and you're breathing, right? And you're breathing, making sure that you're breathing at a normal, regular, relaxed pace. Because if you're not, everything else comes through in terms of your anxiety, your movement. If you're not breathing, if you've got your heartbeats going, the way you move, your two things will happen in terms of how that leaks out, how you move. So you'll probably start moving around a little bit. Your body, it will come through your body because that energy needs to come out, right? That negative nervous energy needs to come out, or through your voice. So if I'm nervous, my breath will not be regular, heartbeat higher or quicker. Shorter breaths mean lower quality of my voice, and the lower quality of my voice, it will come out as probably quite, maybe slightly higher. Also, you can hear that I'm trying to catch breath, and then so all these things together just tell me, well, actually he's nervous and he doesn't seem in control. If he's in control and calm, already the credibility has risen. So really focusing on that, even before you say your first words, is really understanding that you can, just coming out in control, feeling good, and then away you go. So those will probably be the first things we would focus on in terms of quick tips.
And then when he's off stage, you put him aside and say, "Listen, we need to chat more."
Yeah, well, yeah. Yeah.
No, that's brilliant. And there's a lot of talk around what makes the perfect pitch, but to me, I don't know if you feel the same. There is no perfect pitch because everyone's different. Everyone has their own style. Everyone has their own way of saying stuff. Do you agree with that, or
Completely.
is there key elements?
Completely. So all of the things I'm sharing now on their own are tasks, are kind of things you can do. And if you do them, the likelihood of you getting closer to a better outcome is pretty good. None of that, you can do all of it. Doesn't mean that you're going to get people to connect with you. It doesn't mean that you're going to, your idea is going to fly. Doesn't mean that people are going to believe you. But okay, delivery is important because it does show that you're confident. You can be not that confident but have a great idea, and people can still see through that. Investors and people that are responsible for funding, they can often see that and appreciate that, and that's okay. But again, it's all about increasing chances, putting your best foot forward, trying to shine as much as you can, and it's a process. So yeah, I mean, we see a lot of pitches that are not that great, but there's a great idea there. And again, it sometimes people who are responsible for that funding or they want to work together with you, they can help you with that. They can help you with the areas where you're not so strong. They can help you with moving forward in the right way. Often it's whether they really want to work with you. If they can see something that is good in terms of that working together, that will really help. If they see someone in front of them that they feel, well, this guy or this person doesn't really want to listen to this advice, or he seems a little bit arrogant, or he feels like he kind of knows everything, or he's kind of too bold and too kind of strong, often these are signs of someone that maybe isn't coachable or isn't somebody that would appreciate advice to move forward, or could move in a different direction, or when things get tough, whether they're actually going to stick to it. Passion and enthusiasm is all good, but it's things like profit. If there's no profit so far, if you've been in business for quite a few years and you've got a great revenue, great income, but the profit, there's very, very low profit, and you've got a lot of enthusiasm, the signs for somebody who's going to invest into you or to work with you, they often want their money back quicker. It's going to take years and years for them to get their money back. Forget it. If it's an idea that is a great idea, but it's not scalable. You know, I don't know. I'm just looking now. Maybe I've got a pen here. Right? I might have a great pen, great idea for a perfect pen, right? That doesn't cost much. I don't know, $4.99. I mean, great idea. I might have a wonderful idea that a pen that, you know, just never the ink never, it's limitless ink. I don't know, right? Good idea, and it's probably going to make me money as a business owner, and it's going to, you know, keep, you know, give me money every year and grow my small business with my family, perhaps. Yeah, but for an investor to come in and take that idea and make it, you know, 2, 3, 4, 5 times as big in terms of revenue, but more importantly profit, it's never going to work. And so we often see ideas like that. I often see, working with founders, ideas like that. And so we try and very early on try and sort of figure out, hang on a minute, how can we make this something which is, how can we make something which will make this bigger and switch it a little bit so it's actually more broader and could be scalable, not just $4.99, but something that is maybe a subscription or something that is going to, you know, bring in more revenue and more profit. So it's looking at all those things together.
No, it's very true, because you can be the most charismatic, like you said, but if at the end of the day, if the money at the end of it is low margins, you know, you're not going to have them. They say people invest in people, but at the end of the day, it's business, isn't it? You know, you can invest in the person, but the business ultimately decides that decision. Some great insight there, Peter. I want to get a bit more about you. So you've had a fantastic journey. You've delivered some great talks. You've worked with some great founders. What have you personally learned along the way on your journey?
I've learned a lot of things. A lot of things. I've learned that, you know, you might think you know a lot, but you don't. There's a lot to learn. Ego is most of us have this ego that we have, and some of us show it more than others. But behind that, there's, most of us are kind of the same, where we're okay, we're all good, but we've got these other things that are kind of in front of us that are stopping us to showing the real kind of true selves. To be open-minded more, to not be judgmental, to suspend my judgment more. So instead of just, you know, what I see and making a judgment of that. And as we get older, we have more experience in that, and we think we have better judgment as we get older. But in fact, our judgment, it's flawed, because you know, what we think we make good judgment, but in fact, often we don't know if it's good judgment because we don't know the truth. We don't know. We see someone and we make a judgment of them, but we actually don't really know. And there could be a lot of things a lot of things they're sharing, which behind those kind of masks, something completely different. So it's actually trying to wait a little bit more and not to prejudge as much, which plays a massive part in what I do in terms of speaking in front of, or helping people to speak in front of crowds, because everybody's being judged straight away. And we can't change the judgment. We can't change judgment. People will always judge us. Some of that will be good. Some of that will be kind of, most of it will be kind of indifferent, but some of it might be negative, and we can't change that. But we can handle it better. We can tell ourselves that it's okay to judge me. Go ahead and judge me. I'm going to do my best to give you that impression, the right impression of me, or get closer to that better impression of me. So yeah, letting people judge you and judge me more and reject me more, learning to deal with rejection, certainly as a founder myself, as somebody who's grown my business. You know, I constantly get rejected as much as everyone else, and we have to accept that, and that's okay. And people have different reasons for not working with you, or not buying into your idea, and that's okay. If it continues, if it keeps going, then clearly you have to change something. But but it's okay for people, for not everyone to buy into your idea, and that's okay. So letting people judge you, and letting people judge me, um, I've learned. I'm still learning to do that. We all are, in different ways. Again, different areas of our lives as well, not just business, relationships, friendships, all interactions that we have. Right. So it's okay.
Yeah. I'm getting the sense here, Peter, that you're a guy that really enjoys working with people, that really develop you as a person as well. You're not just there developing them, but you get something out of that as well. And I
Yeah,
feel
no,
like, yeah,
absolutely. I get out a lot from working with people I work with. Yeah, learning things myself, and giving that, helping them to do something that they wouldn't be able to do without me, or something that they've learned to do with me better, gives me this pride. And we spoke about earlier on, when you finally see somebody do or present the things you've helped them with, that that's down, down to you, it's down to them as well, because they've listened to you, and they've tried, and they've tried to change something, and it feels good. Yeah.
no, that's brilliant. And Peter, I want to talk about this year, 2022. What plans do you have? What do you want to achieve? What do you want to overcome?
Yeah, no, listen, I had a really bad year in 2020, we all did. 2021 was actually a pretty good year, actually better than 2019 in terms of my business, in terms of coaching. So nearly all of my work went online, helping people, helping leaders and teams to get really good at Zoom, really good at these virtual exchanges. So again, startups, accelerators, leaders, teams, sales teams, to get really good at this chemistry. And that coaching online went really well. Not just coaching online, the format, but actually as I say, helping people to do this really good, to get really good at this. So that's going to continue. Hopefully, this year, more events are coming back. The event industry is moving forward really well, in the UAE. So a lot of work over there. I hear UK is doing pretty well. Well, it's going to start to change now. I think all of the restrictions are kind of, you don't have any more, so you can kind of pretty much do what you like now. So that's good news as well. Europe, it's getting better. So more events coupled with the coaching, and take that forward. I'm dabbling with the idea of writing a book, perhaps. So potentially that, and just keep moving forward, and keep challenging myself with the events that I do, and the projects I get involved with, in terms of helping people share their messages clearer, with more connection.
That's fantastic. And I just want to touch back on the Zoom versus in-person stuff that you do. What was the biggest difference from the in-person coaching to the Zoom coaching?
What, in terms of how I did that, or
Yeah.
the techniques? Well, it took me a while. Listen, Carl, it took me a while to really understand, or really get confident in changing my coaching style to this, because I felt, people are not going to get into it. It's more difficult. But those are the things that kind of help me to figure out, okay, if I've got to do this, this is exactly the kind of things I have to help people with, when they share their messages. So trust and chemistry are one of the biggest things we need to figure out and get closer to on these exchanges, right? Because working with the camera, me looking at the camera, you looking at the camera, what I say, my voice, how I'm moving, what you see behind me, what I see in front of me, all these are signals which equal judgments, and that equals decisions we make about people, right? Clearly, right? So it's about looking at all of those and trying to do them better, trying to do them in a way that's going to get a better connection, that's going to get the perception you want, right? So just figuring it out, essentially what people see, making sure the lighting's okay. The sound is really important as well. You have good sound, makes all the difference, because people fix sound is one of the biggest influences in terms of how we feel about people. Oh, not just people, just generally. Sound makes a massive difference in our feelings and our judgment towards certain things. Like movie, the biggest influencer of whether that movie is going to be a hit or not is the musical score, is the sound that's put on afterwards, because that really makes that emotion, that hits that emotion, that creates the tone, the vibe. So we have to kind of do that same thing with our voice. So we don't have any musical score here, but my voice, your voice, this is what gets people or sways people's decisions and judgment about us. So all things like that have to be taken into consideration. Time is a really important thing as well. Time in the real world is important. It's valuable. During these last 2 years, even more important, isn't it? You know, what we do with our time, how other people take up that time. But here online, in front of a screen, anything in front of a screen, our attention spans are even shorter. So a movie, a Netflix, YouTube, listen to a podcast, we can, if there's any kind of distraction, which there are many, obviously, people can just click with their finger, bang, move on, swipe onto something else. So we can be erased a lot quicker. We can be, you know, so that, what does that mean? We have to get people's attentions quicker and be more appealing to them and be more memorable. We know clearly we over the last couple of years, since the pandemic hit, think about how much screen time or how much time in every day you've been looking at a screen, even more. So working on a screen, relaxing on in front of a screen, probably Netflix or something, or even your mobile. So, you know, we're constantly looking at these screens. We're constantly our attention is constantly being pulled left, right, and center. So we have to, in these exchanges that we have on Zoom or virtual exchanges, whatever platform it is, we have to make sure we stand out. We do things that are going to help people remember us. And again, emotions, storytelling, for example, sharing stories, hitting the relevance, making people feel like they know you better, perhaps, or they can understand what you're sharing even more because it's relevant for them. All those small things mean something. So put all those together, and that's really what I help people to do, and teams to do, to make sure that whether it's selling something, whether it's an intro call to build up that relationship, because that's what it's all about, building up relationships online in front of a screen. Right? So helping them do that in a way that's going to get closer to the outcomes they want.
No, it's very true. And I don't think this Zoom will go away
No.
overnight. I
I
think
mean,
it'll
there's
be
so
here
many
to stay.
benefits. So many benefits. We can reach out to more. My client base doubled because I can do it anywhere. We can do this. They can do this anywhere, and so international teams. We're often working with international teams that are pretty much remote across the world, coming together here online. You obviously can't do that physically. So many benefits in person naturally, but here there are so many good things that will benefit business in general and connection.
No, it's very true. This podcast, perfect example.
Yeah,
I'm here in England. You're there in Croatia. You know, if this
yeah,
didn't exist, this podcast
no,
wouldn't happen, and I'm so glad it is happening, Peter.
yeah, me too.
So I'm getting to the sort of wrap up stage of the podcast now, and I want to ask, what is the best advice you've ever received, and what advice would you like to give to the people watching or listening?
Best advice. Let me think. So best advice, I think I would say, again, I mentioned it earlier on, you know, nobody owes you their time. Nobody owes you their time. As simple as that. Like, so if whatever it is, a meeting, watching a show on TV, that show put together, no one, no, you don't. People listening or watching that show, they don't owe you, the producer of that show, anything. Pitching, 5 minutes, 5-minute pitch. They don't. People listening to that pitch, they don't owe you their time to listen, emotionally listen. So it's up to me, it's up to us as speakers, it's up to us to gain that respect, gain that, try to gain that credibility, try to be appealing and share something that's going to get people to think, oh, I'm going to stick with you. I want to keep listening to you. And that's anything, not just speaking, writing, headlines, copywriting, a small meeting that you have at work, this podcast. And the way you do it here is clearly at the beginning of the podcast. You give a kind of little kind of flavor of what's to come. But that's really important. If you don't do that well, why should people listen? So always remember that in pretty much everything you do. People don't owe you their time. They don't have to give you their time, even what in environments where you think they might owe you their time. You might be a manager, you might be somebody of authority, or a team leader or CEO. They don't really, your team doesn't really owe you anything. You might think they do, but they don't. Right? Emotionally, they could be turned off as you're speaking. Yes, they want to stay in their jobs. Yes, they want to impress the boss, perhaps. Yes, they want to give an impression that they're listening, but emotionally, people can turn off. And we need to keep them turned on emotionally.
Yeah, no, it's so true. No one owes you anything, so you've got to cultivate that relationship.
And the
until
best
they do
advice
care.
I want to, what was that? That was giving advice, or the one I got? I think that was the best advice I was given, right?
I think so, yeah.
So the best advice I would give is the same. I'd give the same thing, because it shapes everything. It shapes a lot of what I do. It shapes a lot of what I do in terms of helping others share their messages. Because let people judge you. It's okay. I mentioned it earlier. It's okay. But think to yourself, okay, what can I do to increase the chances of people listening, increase the chances of people being curious? Often it's so looking at these messages and stories, and I really enjoy taking what I hear, which is often complicated or not clear, and twisting it round and making it clear and making it simple and making it juicy and helping people to really be curious and be not shocked, sometimes shocked, but often just really getting people to just question what they just heard. Yeah. And I really enjoy that, taking complexity, helping others to turn that into simplicity.
No, that's beautifully put. And I love your passion for it as well, Peter. It really, you've really made that connection with me today, and hopefully people watching and listening. So Peter, this is your chance to tell people where they can find you, where they can get in touch. Let them know.
Really simply, just over on LinkedIn, find me on LinkedIn, and you can see all the things I'm doing, or what I've done, but more importantly, perhaps there's something in there that you think can help you. Maybe it's a company, an incubator, an accelerator. Maybe you think you feel that I can help startups and help founders really share their messages in the right way, and not just build out that confidence, but also help these stories, the right stories, come out in the right way and create better connection and chemistry. So have a good look at what I'm doing. Reach out to me, even if again you're not thinking of working together. It's okay. Reach out, connect up, say that let me know that you've listened to this podcast, so I know where you're coming from, and then potentially look at something where we can collaborate on together.
That's fantastic, Peter. And thank you for joining me on this podcast today. It's, we had a few issues, but we got over that, didn't we?
We did. Listen, I've really enjoyed it. And Carl, I'd love to do it again sometime.
Fantastic, Peter. And from myself and Peter, this has been Founder Sessions, and thank you.
Yeah.